Welcome. In this video, we'll be looking into Chapter 9, Independence and Partition of India. और ये वीडियो इस तरह से बनाया गया है कि आपको जब भी इस चीज़ के बारे में रिवाइज करना होगा, आप इसे ईजिली कैसे रिवाइज कर सकें. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, ये देखिए यहाँ पर आपका ये कंटेंट है, तो मैं इस सिलेबस को मैं कितने आसानी से लिखा हूँ मैंने इस चीज़ को. आप इस जगह पे देखिए ये सिलेबस पूरी तरह से या ये कंटेंट देखिए. तो ऑल दिस हैज़ बीन समराइज्ड टू दिस 4 पॉइंट्स. आगे चल के ये जैसे चेंजेस इन ब्रिटेन, ओके, ब्रिटेन कैबिनेट जो चेंजेस इन द कैबिनेट के बारे में जो लिखा हुआ है, तो उस चीज़ को मैं कितने सिंपली बताता हूँ उस चीज़ के बारे में. यहाँ पे देखिए चेंजेस के बारे में. सो इतनी सारी पॉइंट्स को मैं छोटे से मैं बताता हूँ. यही इस वीडियो का खास बात है. अगर आप इसमें इंटरेस्टेड हैं तो आपको ये चैप्टर में गारंटी देता हूँ कि इसमें जितने भी क्वेश्चन आएंगे ICSE के, आप इसमें पूरे मार्क्स लेके आओगे. ठीक है, आइए अब आपका ध्यान लगा है तो अब हम इस पर बात करते हैं. पहली पॉइंट कि हम इंडिपेंडेंस एंड पार्टीशन ऑफ इंडिया, यानी कि we'll just look into that. We'll also cover the cabinet mission plan, the clauses only, and the Mountbatten plan and Independence Act of 1947. सिर्फ इस चीज़ पे हम ध्यान देंगे, and that is what is our syllabus about. Now, before we start, we need to set the historical context. ये स्टोरी स्टार्ट होने से पहले क्या हो रहा है उसके बारे में सुनते हैं. वर्ल्ड वॉर 2 खत्म हो गया था 1945. In April 1945 it got to an end, and India's freedom struggle entered a new but a difficult phase. What happened? This is the context. अगर आप ये समझोगे तब आपको समझ में आएगा कि बाकी चीज़ में क्या हुआ था. ठीक है, तो ये समझते हैं सेटअप क्या है, सीन क्या है. राइट, द फेलियर ऑफ इंडियन नेशनल आर्मी. तो उस वक्त जो सुभाष चंद्र बोस का इंडियन नेशनल आर्मी था वो काफ़ी स्ट्रांग था, लेकिन अब वर्ल्ड वॉर 2 के साथ वो भी ख़त्म हो गई. साथ ही मुस्लिम लीग जो थे वो अपने डिमांड को और इंटेंसिफाई कर दिए. तो इससे हमारी जो इंडिपेंडेंस स्ट्रगल था उसमें एक अलग ही फेज आ गया, लेकिन वो बहुत डिफिकल्ट था. उस वक्त क्या हुआ कि लॉर्ड वेवल, इसे वेवल प्लान कहते हैं, तो इसके ऊपर आपको क्वेश्चंस आ सकता है. जो लॉर्ड लिनलिथगो को रिप्लेस किया था एज वॉइस रॉय, और वो हुआ था 1943. तो वर्ल्ड वॉर कब खत्म हुआ था? अप्रैल 1945. राइट, जो वॉइस रॉय बने थे लिनलिथगो के बाद में 1943 में, वो उस वक्त लॉर्ड वेवल थे. हु वाज द वॉइस रॉय? लॉर्ड वेवल. अब उसको उनके ऊपर क्या दिक्कत है कि इससे पहले जो आप चैप्टर 8 में अगर आप पढ़े होंगे तो कांग्रेस जो है वो अपने सारे काम काज छोड़ चुका था. इट इज नॉट कोऑपरेटिंग विद व्हाटएवर दे हैड इन 1939. दे रिजाइंड इट. ये इसके वेवल प्लान का आधार में ये था कि उनको ये प्रॉब्लम था, इसलिए इसके लिए वो लोग सॉल्व करना चालू किया. समझे? अब उनके ऊपर ये था कि उनको एक ऐसा सिचुएशन बनाना था कि लोगों से, वो कांग्रेस से, इंडियन लीडर्स के साथ वो बात कर सके. तो उसने ये प्रपोज किया कि हम ऐसा करते हैं कि वी ग्रांटिंग डोमिनेंट स्टेटस टू इंडिया इन द लॉन्ग रन. तो आगे चल के कुछ दिनों, कुछ सालों के बाद में इंडिया को मैं फ्रीडम दे दूंगा, लेकिन इट विल बी अंडर द डोमिनियन. ये डोमिनियन का मतलब ये है कि इट विल बी अंडर द ब्रिटिश रूल, बट यू मैनेज इट. आई एम गोइंग टू बी द हेड, आई एम गोइंग टू टेक द मेजर डिसीजंस, बट यू टेक केयर ऑफ द एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन. सो इट विल ऑल्सो अलाउ इंडियंस टू ड्राफ्ट देयर ओन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन. सो इट वॉज एन अचीवमेंट. लगा कि उनको कि हम ये दे देते हैं, ये लोग खुश हो जाएंगे. लेकिन उसके बदले में रिएक्शन क्या हो? सबसे पहले मुस्लिम लीग जो काफ़ी डिमांडिंग हो गई थी एक सेपरेट कंट्री के लिए, उनके साथ ही हुआ कि उन लोग को अब लगा कि ये तो अगर इंडिया डोमिनेंट बन गया तो हमारा पाकिस्तान कहाँ बना. सो दे वर नॉट इंटरेस्टेड इन दिस. देन the Congress rejected because why did the Congress reject? Because it did not accept the total independence from foreign rule. So dominion में total independence नहीं आता, तो दोनों खुश नहीं थे. तो वेवल प्लान यहाँ पर फ्लॉप होता है. So before we move forward, I want to show you this timeline. Look at this timeline. We are talking about the World War and pre-independence and the independence process. This is the timeline. This is 1940, 1941, and so on till 1947. You have the independence. Now, the World War II, which began in 1939, it continued, and in the between, in 1942, the Quit India movement started. And then here in 1943, Lord Wavell becomes the Viceroy. And then in 1945, he introduces the Wavell Plan. Right? So that's a cabinet mission plan was introduced. Then you have the interim government and so on. So as we proceed, I'll show you this diagram so that it becomes clear in your mind what we are talking about along with the timeline. Okay, now let's focus on what led to the cabinet mission. What happened after that? So the events that led to the cabinet mission was there was changes in Britain. Now after the World War II, the balance power has shifted. There were two superpowers that emerged, that is the United States of America and the Soviet Union. So British was no longer in the same kind of authority and power as it was earlier. So, and the Britain's economy and military power weakened. They have been fighting in the war in the World War II for long. So now their economy is gone, and their power to the military power was also consumed a lot, and they got tired. You see that British soldiers were weary of the war. They got too tired of it. And then there was a change in the government in Britain. The Labour Party was replaced by the Conservatives. So there's a political change. People don't want to fight war. The soldiers are tired. They don't want to do it. They are not in a good economical situation. And also that military power weakened. They are no longer the powerful nations in the world. So it became a weak state to manage India. Plus, there was revolts in administrative agencies. Now what happened is, later on you see this part, I'm covering this part of your portion, okay? This whole 4 points, you just need to remember this, and I'll tell you the story behind. This is how you should remember. So if you watch this video 2 times along with the text that I'm giving you, this entire text that I'm showing you here, I'll give it to you. You can print it out and keep referring to, and this wouldn't take more than say few minutes to read through. So 5 to 10 minutes is what you would need. So in the beginning, give 10 minutes, read it every 2-3 days or in a week till the exams are there, and then during the exam it will just need you 5 to 10 minutes. So imagine when you are preparing for the exam and the exam is on the next day, you just need 5 to 10 minutes to revise this chapter. Then you go on to the questions that are there. You try to test yourself in questions. So our target is to prepare for the exam, and on the exam date you should not have any pressure. That's the idea. So listen very carefully now. Now what happened? The British government or the British power became weak. They are now administrating India, and even in India there are changes because of the INA, the Indian National Army movement. The Indians got too kind of involved in the freedom struggle. They became more aware of their powers, and there was world war, so nobody could have escaped knowing about it and knowing about what is the country. So even the peasants, the farmers, they all came to know about what's going on. And you know what Mahatma Gandhi did? There was a complete involvement of the entire country. They wanted freedom, and there were many leaders who came forward. So it was no longer a very simple, easy, unknown country which was divided into different states, and each states were fighting with each other. Early when the East India Company came in, we were all divided. Now we all came united and we all wanted freedom. So this also came along with their British becoming weaker. So you see the change. Let's identify what happened in the administrative. Think of it. You go to a school, right? What if the head of the school reports to the school which has like the bigger body, right? Who is the head of your school? Your principal. And who is the bigger body? Say you have a body that runs 10 schools and yours is 1 school, right? And the principal of that school is the viceroy. For example, it's not the viceroy, but she has a lot of power for administration in the school. She appoints things that happens. Now what if the teachers revolt? What if the administrative staff, the clerks and those in the housekeeping, they revolt? That's what was happening, right? Look at this. The unreliability of Indians in civil administration and armed forces. So they had an army, the security guards, you can think of that. You have security guards and watchmen in your school. What if they were revolting against the school? I'm giving you an example of the school because you go to school every day. I'm not trying to tell that they should revolt. Okay, don't relate it that way. Because you have not seen the times of what happened during the war, I'm giving an analogy. Okay, so all this that you read in this whole few lines on here, now you can read it in this 1, 2, 3, 4 lines, right? So I'm giving you a crisper way. So what I have to remember? The global power balance, then economies, okay, and military power weakening. So what is the keyword here? Weakening. Remember weakening. Then remember power balance. Okay, this is the word. And then there was a change in government. So earlier the government that was supporting all the things that were happening in the Commonwealth, all the countries where British were ruling, there was a change. When there is a change of government, that means there's a change of thought, right? And the soldiers became weary. They got tired. So remember these 4 words and you have done with this whole set of para. Okay. You should at least read it once because you have to write it. So I'm assuming you have read this part. Now you're trying to remember to prepare for the exam. Right? Agreed? If not, pause. Okay, move on. Now, revolts in the administrative agencies. What happened is unreliability of Indian in civil administration and armed forces. So say for example the teachers and the security guards and the watchmen, they don't want to listen to the principal. So will the principal have the complete hold? She or he will not have that kind of control to run the school. Similarly, the viceroy was having a difficulties in running. And there was revolt of Indian naval ratings in Mumbai in 1946. So there was Indian naval in ratings, and there was some revolt that happened. They didn't experience it earlier. Now there is a revolt. So what you have to remember here, Indian naval ratings. So revolt of Indian naval ratings. Remember this. And this happened in Feb 1946. Remember this. You have come to the year 1946. Next year, 1947, India is getting independence. So how close you are to that change in the rule that was there for about 200 years. So you're reading the last few months of the transition. Then the strikes of Royal Indian Air Force and the Indian Signal Corps. There were strikes. Strikes means people didn't want to work. So Air Force was saying, okay, I'm going on a strike. I don't like the way you do. So you may not have known strikes because for the last few days and years, you haven't seen that happening in our country. But there are strikes like factory employees do not like the rules and the wages, so they're going to strike. Strike means we agree not to work. For example, in colleges, it doesn't happen in school, but in colleges it does happen. That students come together and they say that we are on a strike. We are not going to attend classes. Change the viceroy, change the vice chancellor, or change the principal, change this person, change the canteen food. They talk like that. Okay. So what if students come together and say that we are not going to attend the classes? It doesn't happen in school, but it happens in colleges. That's what happened in the Indian Air Force. They say that, okay, we are not going to obey you. And everybody is against that. So they cannot kill, they cannot tell them, okay, you are fired from your job, you're not going to work here. Because if they do that, they don't have anybody to work. So the government was getting weaker, right? The viceroy had problems in many ways. And there was signs of unrest in the police. Even the police were not happy. Because there was more awareness of freedom. Okay, and the civil service is like all those who does in the government bodies, the collectors and the staff of the government. They were also not cooperative. There were unrest means there was kind of a violence. There was kind of no law and order. People were not obeying. So it led to the understanding of the mood of Indian people at that time. Let's listen to this. What happened to the Indian people? These are organized bodies, right? What we have learned so far in this, the civil administration, armed forces, they were bodies. There was some organization. But in general, what were Indian people thinking? The peasants, the farmers, the businessmen, what were they thinking? They were confident and determined to end foreign rule, right? I told you, this was the time of World War and everybody, there was radio and there was print, so the information was flowing in. People were not unaware of what was happening. They knew their rights and they were all now kind of educated and aware. So they said that I'm not going to cooperate. Even though I'm not in the forces, I'm not in the police, I'm not in the civil, I'm not going to cooperate. So there was civil unrest. So, and also let's mark this word, there was, people were determined. So the key word here is they were determined. They are determined to end foreign rule. Remember, watch this video on full screen, okay? If you're on a phone or something, you need to zoom in sometimes and look at where I'm pointing to. And there was agitation, strikes and demonstrations that you see even these days, right? People don't like what has happened. Somebody has committed crime. There is rape somewhere. You see people are agitating. People are taking on processions and demonstrations. So that started happening. They were peaceful, but that's not good for a government to run. Next, there was labor unrest. Now look at this. All India strike by postal and telegraph workers. Imagine today there was a body that runs the internet and they say that we are not going to work. The internet is shut down across the country. That was what the postal and the telegraph department at that time. There was no workers doing this. They said that we are not going to work. So there was a labor. Labor means those who work in organizations other than the government controlled. Even they said, I'm not going to work. And railways, they went on strike. Everywhere there is non-cooperation. And even the farmers, they intensified their movement. So they were also protesting. We have seen some protests, India's farmer protest even in the recent days, and they were large. But at that time, all over South India, all over India, there were protests. The railways went on strike in South India in August 1946. So 1 year prior to the independence, this was happening. 1 year prior to the independence, the postal and telegraph people went on strike. Do you see what kind of unrest and loss of control out there? That's what, when people become aware of their powers and they unite and they fight, that's what happens. Moving on, the next point is the cabinet mission in India. You have this cabinet mission in India. So read your book. I assume you have read it once, okay? When you're reading, read it like a story, that something is happening in sequence. And why are you reading? Not just to get marks, you're reading so that you understand what has gone before. Now later on, when you hold some offices, when you become a high authority officer someday, you need to know how people behave, how countries have treated you earlier. That's why you're reading this. Okay, now moving on. The cabinet mission in India. So let's think of this. We have this cabinet mission. Let me see if I can get you the graph back. Is the graph ready? Yeah. Let's see this. I'm getting my graph here. There's a cabinet mission plan that started in 1946. So the Wavell plan, the Dominion thing, they said, no, we are not going to take. Who said? The Congress said, because I'm not getting the complete freedom from foreign rule, I'm not going to accept. And at the same time, the Muslim League say that we are not getting an independent country, we are not going to accept it. So Wavell plan didn't work, there was unrest, and then they came up with a cabinet mission plan. Let us see what is a cabinet mission plan. This was announced by the British Prime Minister Clement Attlee. This is the picture of British Prime Minister who announced this. And when did it happen? Feb 1946. Okay, and there are only August is like 8th. So 6 months before the independence, they said that we have a cabinet mission. So they started a new program. What was the mission about? To facilitate the process of power transfer. Now this is the first time you see that they say, fine, no matter what, we are not going to do it. We cannot manage this country. It's difficult for us to run. So I'm going to give the power to you. That was the first time they said that you have your own team. But that should be like, I can't walk out, right? If I walk out, the whole country is in a mess. They will all fight. They will all try to capture power, and there's no structure. So they said that, fine, let us try this out. We want to give you the power. So there were members who formed this. The members were Patrick Lawrence, who was the Secretary of State, Sir Stafford Cripps, and A.V. Alexander. So remember these names. These were the members. So you need to come out with this. You need to understand who did this. You have this content here. Okay, I'll just read this for the completeness. Clement Attlee, the new British Prime Minister, declared in the House of Commons, that is the Parliament in Britain, on February 19, 1946. How many months before? Feb. March, April, May, June, July, August. So 6 months prior to the India's independence, he said that a cabinet mission would be sent to India to facilitate the process of transfer of power. That means they accepted defeat. I'm going to walk out. I just want to give the power. The mission's aim was to help the Indian leaders decide the form of government that would suit them after the transfer of power. So they said, fine, I'm going to give power. I just want you to make sure that whoever are leaders, you come together and you form your government. The way the government you want it, you take it. That is what they said. So the cabinet mission arrived in India in 1946, and it had Patrick Lawrence, or the Patrick Lawrence. Okay, I think Patrick Lawrence is the right spelling. This is wrong. And the Secretary of the State, Stafford Cripps, is the President and the Board of Trade, and A.V. Alexander, the First Lord of Admiralty. So they held discussions with various Indian leaders, and this is what they put in the cabinet plan. So this was announced by the British Prime Minister. Now, with the same, these people came in together. These are the clauses, okay? The Federal Union. Federal means central, okay? A two-tier federal plan to maintain national unity while allowing regional autonomy. So they said that fine, let's have this plan. There will be one central, federal means central, like you have the central government. They said that we'll have one national government, and then there will be regional autonomy. So some bodies like state you have now will be there. Autonomy means they are free to decide what they want, but the main things will be decided by the nation. Like you have the center, okay, you have the Prime Minister of India, then you have the Chief Minister. They proposed a similar structure. Let's look into the details. The union government was to deal with the foreign affairs, defense and communications. So the central government would take care of foreign affairs, meaning how to deal with the other country, the trades and other things. The defense, the forces will be there for the central. It will not be with the state. And communications, meaning the post and all these telegraph or any communications that has happened or that should happen, or the mode of communication, they will have the control. They will have the power to raise finances for these subjects. So whenever they need any money, they will impose any taxes. The central government, Indian government, this is the proposal that they made. Let's have a federal union. Okay. Then the powers of the union, own executive and legislature. That means they'll have their own people who will make the law. Legislators are those who are elected to make laws. Executives are those like officers who will implement the laws. So they can have their own executive and legislatures with members elected by all provinces. Now province means the state. Okay, so the state will elect some and they will send it to the center, and the center will have their group of people who will make the laws and another group of people who will execute it. For example, group of people is like, think of a group of principal, vice principal and the board who decides how your school should run. Okay, but then your teachers execute it. Okay, that's how it is. I'm trying to give you the meaning of executive and legislature. Legislature is more about legal, the law, the lawmakers. Okay, executive is the executors. For example, in the parliament they make the law, right? In the legislative assembly, the MLAs, they make the law for the state, but who executes it? The officers, the IAS officers and other officers, the police officers, they implement it. They are the executive officers. Now, for the provincial autonomy, they will have full autonomy for subjects not under union control. So what are the subjects under union control? The defense, foreign affairs, communications are responsibility and ownership of the center, but others were to be under the state. The state will talk about the trades and local trades and other economic things, other rules, whatever laws they have to make. There are religions, there are faith. Okay, so based on that, they will make their own laws, like how to do business and how to run schools and all those things, hospitals, all the welfare things within the state, they will do it. They can also impose taxes and get the funds to run all this. The problem is, they said that grouping of provinces, remember this, it's getting longer, so we'll pause this video after we do this. Okay, Group A, Group B, Group C. Group A was 6 Hindu majority provinces: Madras, Bombay, Central Provinces, United Provinces, Bihar and Orissa will form Group A. They are trying to make provinces. Okay, they didn't think of the states based on the languages, they thought of the religion. Then there are 3 Muslim majority. There was Punjab, Northwest Frontier Province and Sindh. That was where the Group B will be, one Muslim state. The other one was Bengal, Assam and some chief commissioners provinces. Okay, some provinces that were under the control of some chief commissioners, that would be Group C. You need to read this part to understand the details of that. I'm assuming you would have read this. Okay, if not, please read it. What I'm preparing for is a quick way to remember for your exam. Okay, so doesn't mean that you are not going to read this. You should read this. For example, Group C, this would include Bengal, Assam, chief commissioner provinces, that is Delhi, Ajmer, Coorg, okay, and Coorg to join Group A and Balochistan to join Group B. Finally, the provinces of the commissioner, they could opt out of a group and join another by majority vote. That means that particular province people can vote and they said, I don't want to come on this side, I want to go on the other side. So that's what they proposed. Then there is a constituent assembly. 389 members, 296 from British provinces, 93 from princely states. Now you may be thinking, what is this British provinces, what is this princely states? So British provinces are the ones that were ruled by the British directly, and there was no such king or Nawab or Raja, right? Rajas and Nawabs and kings are the princely states. So they said that from all this 296 and 93, we'll take one representative, will form an assembly. So that forms to 389 members, assembly will be formed. But then what about the minorities? What about those who are lesser in religion and faith? So let's have some representative from them also, right? Like let's take some people who are from Muslims faith and Sikhs, so that they also come into, and their voice also should be heard in the government. Then they came in. The third point is government. Okay, 14-member government at the center will be formed, and they have the freedom to join the Commonwealth, right? So here is the point: formation of the interim government. So it says that an interim government would be formed at the center with 14 members. For the time being, the Viceroy would reconstitute his executive council consisting of representative of all committees. So he said that fine, we'll form a government. The Viceroy will be the head for some time, and gradually the power will be given. And India would have the freedom to remain within the British Commonwealth or secede from it. That means they said that, okay, India, if you want to be a part of British, you can, or you can consider yourself free after this is done. So this was the proposal made. Then the transfer of power. What happens in the transfer of power? It says that it would be necessary to work a treaty between the Constituent Assembly. That means, what is the Constituent Assembly? This 389 people, okay, and the United Kingdom for matters arising out of power of transfer of power. So these 389 people who are representative of all the British provinces and then the 93 princely states, they would now talk to the United Kingdom of how the power will be transferred. So we take a break here, and next we will see how this proposal was rejected by few, so that they wanted formation of Pakistan. We'll see that. So now we saw that there was a proposal here. What we have seen is that the clauses of the cabinet mission plan first proposed that there will be a federal union. Now the effect of that is that there was a rejection of Pakistan demand. So the cabinet mission rejected the Muslim League's demand for Pakistan due to unresolved minority issues in both proposed states. So there was no way to resolve the minority issues in both the states that are there. And there was unjustified inclusion of non-Muslim districts in proposed Pakistan. So there were some districts that were non-Muslim, but that was proposed to be in Pakistan. That was another reason for the rejection. Then practical difficulties in dividing the armed forces. Now, how would you divide the armed forces, right? They were all together with the British. How do you divide it in different ways if they are not divided into two equal parts? I mean, two separable parts. It was difficult to have it in pockets. Plus, how do you do the transportation and the communication? How do you divide them, right? When they were built, they were not built with the idea of that one day it will be divided. So they didn't think of that. They were all built for the one nation. Now, challenges of princely states in choosing which union to join. Now, I said you, princely states are the states where the prince or the king was still ruling, although under the dominion of the British. Okay, it was not under the direct rule. There was still a king or a Nawab was already there. Now there was no clear way of which state they should join. So it was not clear. Now geographical separation into two halves of the proposed Pakistan. Now there was East Pakistan and the West Pakistan, the Sindh and Punjab area, and also the Bengal area was proposed. So it was difficult to make a plan to divide it into two geographically different parts. That was one problem. So as a result of that, what happened? Because of this proposal, now if you propose something and there's one Muslim League which wants Pakistan, and then you say that I don't want to give it because of whatever problems. Now that group is not going to accept it. That's what happened. They were not, rational in thinking. वो नहीं सोचे कि ये हो सकता है कि नहीं हो सकता. बस वो बोले हमको चाहिए तो चाहिए. कैसे आर्म्ड फोर्सेस डिवाइड करोगे, कैसे आप कम्युनिकेशन लाइंस, रेलवेज कैसे डिवाइड को नहीं पता, हमको चाहिए बस. तो जिद पे थे. तो जो लोग जिद पे थे वो लोग क्या करेंगे, बोले नहीं हमको नहीं मिला, हम नहीं एग्री करेंगे. बट कांग्रेस, हाउ डिड इट रिस्पॉन्ड? नाउ आफ्टर द कैबिनेट मिशन प्लान वाज प्रपोज्ड, इट वाज Congress accepted the proposal, although it did not like it. Okay, it accepted it. Now, it agreed to the constitution making part of the plan. Then it said, okay, because you are allowing us to make the constitution, we are going to make it, right? So then it went on to consider the Constituent Assembly as a sovereign body for drafting the constitution. अब क्या हुआ? देखो इंडिया का जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन बनना था, the Constituent Assembly, the group of people was authorized. They thought that, okay, those who what is the Constituent Assembly? Remember that part where I said there are 389 members, right? This will form the Constituent Assembly. So it's fine. It's fine if you have that. Then we are going to accept it. We are going to make our own constitution, and they'll be making their own constituency. Like Constituent Assembly will write their own constitution. They will draft it. Now it wanted the grouping of provinces to be optional, not compulsory. Now what the Congress said that the grouping of provinces should be optional. The grouping that you saw, that A, B, C, right? That should be optional. You should not make it mandatory. This was particularly important for Assam, which had a Congress government at the time and was placed in the proposal of Group C. If you see Group C, Assam comes in. So they wanted Assam to be part of it. So if you say that if they will choose, or you mandate it, right? Sorry, if you mandate it, if it isn't going to be Group C, he said, no, I don't want that. They should be freedom to choose, because you already have your own government, so you will choose to go with the Indian government, the one which the Congress part of it. The Congress will always go with the Congress, right? So it said that I don't want you to put it in the groups that you have decided. I want to decide where I want to be. That's what was proposed by the Congress, and wanted the grouping of provinces. Okay, this one is covered. Now, optional. Let's highlight this word. Okay, let's highlight this, and you will keep this as a word to remember, right? When you're writing history, when you're writing a history exam, you need to take a few points and you need to know how to elaborate it. So few points needs to be memorized. If you read it few times, if you look at the story like a movie, right, then you'll be able to, it will get into your head, a sequence, reasons will get into your head. Then if you have read it earlier, you'll be able to retell the stories before and after. Just like you try to narrate what happened yesterday. So you remember the main event. Then you say that he said this, he said that, he didn't like it, he was wearing this shirt, that. You build up the story, because then you're able to recollect. In the similar way, first remember the key points. And when you're writing the exams, you should be able to reproduce it. Now, why we are reading history, I'll tell you at the end of this, and or after some time. First, let's get into this. Then it rejected the Viceroy's offer to form an interim government. Who rejected? The Congress. The Congress response is fine, all good, but I don't want to form an interim government. There are reasons why they didn't want it. I'll mention that reasons now. Now, the reasons are its limited status and power. The interim government was like, it couldn't do anything. It was just there for the namesake. And then there was a disagreement with the principles of parity with the Muslim League. Now they said that the way you are trying to put the Congress at par with Muslim League is not right. So I did not, the Congress didn't accept the interim government. The third part is opposition to the League's claim of exclusive right to nominate all Muslim members to the Executive Council. Now what the Muslim League is saying that I want all the rights to nominate all members to the Executive Council. I don't want any elections or somebody else to choose. I want my rights to choose my people. Now that's not people's representation. So that's why they rejected the interim government. The Congress rejected that. How did the Muslim League respond? This will be interesting. Now they are a smaller group, right? And they have their own interests to be taken care of. How did they respond? What do you expect they would have done? They said that I'm going to accept it entirely in 1946. That was about 1 year before that. They said that I accept what plan? I am accepting the cabinet mission plan. Now why are they doing that? Because they thought that even though you have smaller majority provinces towards the Pakistan, they're actually forming Pakistan, right? The grouping of Muslim majority provinces as a steps toward formation of Pakistan. The moment they say that, okay, fine, you are grouping Muslim majority provinces, you're putting it as Muslim majority. That means we are being identified as a group in certain areas. That means once we are identified as a group, then those groups will want to come together and form Pakistan. So whatever little win they were getting in, they thought that this is good and we should keep it. That's why they favored. Till now they were not getting anything. Now it requested the Viceroy able to constitute the interim government because of the parity that they got. So the things that the Congress didn't like is what the Muslim League liked. Now finally, what happened after that? Now there was a conflict between the Congress and the Muslim League. Okay, there was a rising conflict. What happened in July? This was June, right? They accepted in the month of, look at this, how quickly this things are changing every month. And this is important. It's good that you get to know this. One day when you become an IS officer, you hold a big position, or when you try to talk about India's history, you know what has happened finally, right? After June, when this cabinet mission plan was accepted, there was a lot of problem. There was conflict between Congress and Muslim League. So in July 1946, the elections to the Constituent Assembly happened. Congress obtained 2/3 majority. Wow. What happened is that they were not happy with it. They went ahead. Both were not completely happy, but they went ahead with it. So the Congress got 2/3 majority. So Muslim League feared being outvoted. They said, okay, we want it. We want the plan. But when the elections happened and when the Constituent Assembly was, what is Constituent Assembly? Remember those 300, what's the number? I don't know. Let's get, where is the Constituent Assembly? Where did we read that? 389? Yeah, this one. Let me highlight this. This is very important. The point number 5, let me highlight this. And I'll make this font a bigger font, okay? This you should not forget. Keep referring to that, okay? Now, from the 389, they got 2/3 majority. Then what happened in September? July, August passed in. On 2nd September 1946, the Congress government or the Congress Constituent Assembly, led by Jawaharlal Nehru and colleague, were sworn in as the members of the Viceroy's Executive Council. Now, the Viceroy was still there, right? Because there's no Prime Minister yet. India has not got the freedom. So Viceroys have an Executive Council. He has a team now. You see he has a team of Indian Constituent Assembly. So this team was led by Jawaharlal Nehru and his colleagues were sworn in as the Viceroy's Executive Council. Let make this also a very important point. Then the Muslim League kept itself out of it. They say that no, this is not happening at all. We lost it, right? They lost the majority. They said, I'm not going to be part of it. See how they will change their own opinion. League observed the day as a day of mourning. Okay, they said that, you're going ahead and forming it. We lost it. But then in October, they turn around and say that we want to join the government. First, they said, I'm not going to be part of it. But then now they're saying that now that they don't have anything, they said, I'll be part of it. You see, this is what happens even in your classes, in your society. When you have a group of people, two groups agree, okay, let's do this. And one group wins, the other feels defeated. They say that I'm not going to. This happens in homes as well, right? You agree for a certain thing, your brother or sister, they agree. And then finally, when a decision is made, the other person is still upset. Then when he's left out, he said, okay, fine, I'll join along. But when they join, when the other group joins, they come and create problem. Now they see how they create the problems. The League's nominees rejected the idea of collective responsibility. This is one thing, you just take it off, that they were here for just not to cooperate. First they said, I'm not going to be part of it, then nobody cared, right? If you don't want to be part of it, you agreed for an election, we did, now you're out of it, fine. If you don't want to be part of it, be out of it. Then they said, no, I'll be here. They came in. Now what they did in December 9, the Constituent Assembly met in Delhi without the participation of the League. They went ahead and they met. Okay. Then Dr. Rajendra Prasad was elected as the president. Nehru moved a resolution declaring India as an independent sovereign republic. See, it went there and declared it in 1946. Still, the Viceroy was still there, right? Then Attlee, the Prime Minister, in Feb 1947, he was trying to get away from all the problems that is happening here. They said that the interim government is not functioning properly due to the differences between Congress and the League. Now, they have their own interest, even though they were moving ahead with the who proposed this cabinet plan. The British proposed it, the Viceroy proposed it. Congress and the League, they didn't agree to the parts of it, but they went ahead and accepted it. When the Congress won, the League started creating problem. Then the Congress went ahead and said, fine, we are going to go ahead and form the government and we are declaring ourselves as an independent state. But League did not keep quiet. They kept on creating trouble. And this was also in the interest of British. They thought that, okay, fine, let us divide the country. And they mentioned that the government is not functioning properly. So interim means, for the time being, okay, is not functioning properly. That was in Feb 1947. See how close you're getting to August. And then the communal rights was at peak. Chaos and anarchy prevailed. Anarchy means nobody obeys any rules, no laws. There is no police, no court, nothing. That's anarchy. So there were communal rights because of the Hindus and Muslims and their disagreements. Wherever the Muslims were in majority, they used to kill the Hindus, and wherever Hindus were in majority, they killed the Muslims. And it went on. And as the news spread of the riots, it actually went on and caught like fire across the country. So Clement Attlee declared in the British Parliament that, fine, I'm not going to handle it. What did he say? That his intention is to transfer power to responsible Indian hands by June 1948. In Feb 1947, he's saying that in June, right? So about Feb, March, April, May, June, another 15 months, then fine, I'm going to get out of it. That's how frustrated they were. They were not able to manage. The constitution not framed by then, if the constitution is not formed by then I'm going to leave. I'm going to hand over to whosoever I think is responsible. That's what they said. I'm going to quit. I'm giving 15 months. Please form your constitution, get things into your hand, or we are leaving. That's the announcement he made. Then they made another move. And this made a change, the final change. This, you see, you should understand how the nominees or your representatives, they bring in a change. Now, Lord Wavell, under which all these were happening, was recalled. They said, enough of you being Viceroy. We have come into a situation which you cannot handle. Let Mountbatten take care of it. And he was appointed as a Viceroy. Now, what did Mountbatten do? He thought that I need to close this and come out. And that's what he said. He first started to restore peace between Congress and League. If the leaders agree, the news would spread and the riots will come in control. And there's what deadlock in these two parties. He said, okay, whatever it is, I want to bring them together. Agree. Even if you're separating, agree to separate. And he realized that the cabinet mission plan was unworkable. That is what even the Muslim League was mentioning, that I don't agree. Finally, he said, okay, it is inagreeable, and the partition was inevitable. He said that. And finally, what Muslim League wanted happened. Mountbatten said that we are going to do it. But then, how was Congress responding to it? First, let us read Mountbatten's plan. Okay, his main points were, there is a partition into two parts, India and Pakistan. And relationship between them, they decide how do you want to be. We are going to separate. Okay. Creation of boundary commissions. So there will be one group of people, a commission will be created who will decide the boundaries of the two countries. And then there was two distributed population, one on the east and the west. So you had Punjab and West Bengal, or the Bengal. Now it is known as West and East Bengal. But anyway, at the time the Bengal, there were a mix of population, Hindu and the Muslims. Okay, so they wanted to divide that. So they agreed that they need to be separated. And Sindh was to decide its fate through its legislative assembly. So Sindh has its own assembly. Their elected people will decide how to go ahead. And plebiscite in Northern Frontier Province and referendum in the Sylhet district. So there were two districts where they wanted plebiscite and referendum. Now both plebiscite and referendum almost mean the same thing. That means people decide where they want to go. You want to go with India? Go with India. You want to go with Pakistan? Go with Pakistan. So that is what referendum is similar to plebiscite, and it's not within our current study to make a difference in that. Okay. Remember, if you get confused when to use referendum and when to use plebiscite, referendum is with Sylhet or the Sylhet. Okay. So you can remember as R and S. R for referendum, S for Sylhet. Okay, so you can use this word. And even if you cross use it, that should be okay. However, you have a clue. Now, separate constituent assembly for Pakistan. This is what they wanted. They wanted a different constituent assembly. Once they have their own constituent assembly, that means your own body, own people to make the law, they will make their own country. So, and he said that I'm going to transfer power. I'm not going to wait till June as Attlee wanted it. I'm going to do it by 15th August. Now, how was this accepted by people? Let's check that. There was mixed feelings. The nationalists thought that, okay, we are going to go ahead and have a partition. There were people like Mahatma Gandhi and others who wanted it to be one country. They never wanted it to be divided. But then it was agreed to divide, so they didn't like it. Muslim League not fully satisfied due to the way Pakistan was divided, but accepted. See, from a point where they were not even getting a peace, from a point where they thought, okay, fine, we'll get into the government, we'll create issues, we have some groups, we'll identify as those points as Pakistan, a step towards formation of Pakistan. They are getting a constituent assembly, but they didn't like the way it was being divided. But that is still a major breakthrough. They said, while there are situations of riots and so many problems already there, let's accept whatever we get right now. And Congress accepted due to lack of alternatives. Congress tried its interim government and it couldn't run it effectively. And now the British is making it very clear that either you run it properly or we are going to leave as it is and go. So here are the reasons why Congress accepted it. There were communal rights. Everywhere there were riots. The quicker they resolve this issue, easier it will be to control the riots. And they were difficult in working with Muslim League. They created problems in every area. There was no coordination between them. For their only objective was to create an objection, right? Preference for smaller India with strong central authority. So they said, fine, it's okay. We'll agree with a smaller India, but then there will be more control. We get to do what we want. And then there was other problem. The problem was the British were instigating. That means uksa rahe the. They were telling the other princely states, the Nawabs of Hyderabad and other places, they were saying that you remain independent. Why do you have to go with either Pakistan or India? You remain independent, right? As you are already, you become the king, you continue. So whoever is the king, why would he want to give up that, right? So they were instigating, and Congress thought that if we wait longer, the British is going to keep them again, they will divide that state. And then the civil war. Now there are communal rights. Civil war is a longer form, there's absolute unrest, and once it starts, very difficult to control. So that was a time to prevent the war. They said, fine, we accept it. And there was also an opportunity to create a secular and democratic polity. So one organization and one nation would be formed. They thought that. Finally, the Independence Act came up. And with this, we are coming to the end. We don't have much to cover now. This is the end of it. This is the second last point. The main provisions. Creation of two dominions, we saw that. Partition of Bengal, we saw that. Okay. Plebiscite in the Northwest Frontier Province and Sylhet. You see, we are using the same word, right? It's okay. You don't have to say referendum every time. Appointment of Governor General for each. Now, I'll tell you what is a Governor General after some time. Governor General is from the British, okay, and it's like one person who's still having authority over everyone right now for the time being. End of the British Parliament's jurisdiction over India. So the British Parliament will now completely stop getting into India's activities. That is the Independence Act that was formed. And both the states, all the princely states will be independent. That's what they proposed. And then lapse of treaties and agreements with princely states. So whatever the princely states, the Nawabs of Hyderabad and other kings that were there will be no more agreements, no protection, no taxes, nothing would apply after this. And then the Indian army and the assets would be divided. Power vested in the Governor General to implement the act. Now the Governor General was appointed and it was given him the power. The power is given to him to implement the Independence Act. Now once this was done, what happened? India and Pakistan both became independent on 15th August. Do you see the timeline? Did you see how quickly things changed? And as a result of it, Lord Mountbatten became the Governor General of India and Jinnah of Pakistan. So Mountbatten remained the Governor General of India and Jinnah became of that of Pakistan. Mountbatten remained until June 1948. Now, after that, C. Rajagopalachari succeeded Mountbatten as the first Indian Governor General. Now, you see that he became the Governor General and he was Indian, right? So, that is fine. He's the first Governor General who is an Indian. Now, after some time, India became Republic. That is, Dr. Rajendra Prasad became the first President of India. That is 26 January 1950. So, complete takeover of any power, any authority from the British. As conclusion, now it's time to conclude. We are going to conclude now. India's independence struggle set an example. So, what happened is that other colonial countries are countries that were under the British rule, right? Through India, they got an example that this is the way to go. You go and make a legislation. You have this constituent assembly formed, and then you can separate from the British. And partition led to the tragic consequences of challenges of national reconstruction. Now, there is a partition, right? And all authorities given to you. You have to take care of your own money, own business, own health, and peace. That became a big challenge. So, despite the economic challenge, India emerged as a major industrialized nation, primarily because of the leaders and their commitment, and there were selfless work in the beginning because they saw the struggle, right? So they worked earnestly, right, to set a very good foundation for this country, and they were successful in doing it. And today you see where India stands. And India became one of the world's largest and the fastest growing economies, which it is today. And it is recognized as the world's largest democracy. It is committed to peace. India never invades any country, disarmament and non-alignment. It doesn't take either sides of any superpowers. So with this, we come to the end of a quick run through. I'm going to improve this document and put it online so that during the exam time, you would read this. So what is the next thing you have to do? You need to run through this and also through the text. Okay, do that. It will take about an hour to do. In 1 hour, you'll be able to run, or 1.5 hours, you'll be able to run through this. Once that is done, you keep running only through this. Keep the book aside, keep running through the text. On your exam day, run through this, and within 15 minutes, you'll be able to run through this entirely of few pages that we have, right? See you in the next chapter.